Hey everyone, Josh here from Fresh Start Customs, and today we're going to be making the mini record player. I have plans to maybe make a bigger version of this in the future, so if I do end up doing that, I'm going to just use this same video for assembling and building that one as well. So let's go ahead and get started. As you can see, I've kind of put some stuff together already. I went ahead and put the bottom side of the box together, just because it's just a standard box. Use a rubber tip hammer and you assemble it just like you would a regular box. Same thing with the acrylic top. Now the only thing different with the acrylic top is I removed all the masking tape on the bottom sides before assembling and left the outside masking tape on. That way, just in case your hammer is dirty, you don't dirty up the acrylic. And then I'm going to pull this off at the very end and show you guys what that looks like. So let's get those two out of the way. We'll come back to those in just a little bit here. But let me go ahead and go over what you're going to need for this project. What you're going to need is you're going to need a digital caliper, like always. This is measuring the thickness of your material. All material can vary slightly. What I go off of size-wise is the thickness of the material with masking tape on both sides. So the wood that I'm using here is 0.137 inches with masking tape on both sides. It's labeled as 1/8 inch wood. The acrylic that we use with masking tape on both sides is 0.116 inches with masking tape on both sides, and it's also labeled as 1/8 inch material. That's why it's important to know your sizes so you can adjust for your kerf settings. And your laser kerf settings may be different, so you may have to make some slight adjustments. If you're using proof grade material, I have tested this out quite a bit, so you shouldn't have to make any adjustments for that. So just a heads up, like I said, there is a little bit of a difference between the two. This is 0.16 or 116, and then this one is 0.137 inches. So just keep that in mind. You will need a digital caliper to measure your material if you're using different size materials. Next thing up, this is going to be your main tool here, is a rubber tip hammer. Like always, whenever you assemble a tight fit 3D design, you're going to need a rubber tip hammer if the joints are properly set to be tight. If not, then you may need glue if it's from like another designer who's doing non-tight joints. One last thing that we will need is some type of glue. This is what I use. This is all that I have on hand, but I would recommend for this project, since it is a lot smaller parts, as you can see over here, I would use a faster activating glue, like some kind of super glue that has like an activator in it, so it just dries faster and it's easier to hold in place. But this is what I'm going to use, and in the video, I'm not really going to apply the glue until the very end, and I'll do that off camera just because it's so small and you can barely see it on camera here. And then I'll show you what I mean as we go along. And then the last thing that you can use if you want to for masking tape is the Gorilla duct tape to remove your masking tape. So let's go ahead and get started here. As you've seen, I had those other two boxes pre-assembled, and I pre-assembled the actual record player box except for this side. The reason why I did that is we're going to have some moving parts that we're going to put right on here and right here for the slider. So let's go ahead and set this off to the side for right now. We're going to somewhat build those moving parts, and then we're going to add the leftover parts afterwards. So I'll go ahead and set that off to the side, and we'll go into these actual parts here. Let's see if I can zoom in just a little bit here. There we go. So the record's going to be very last. You're going to put that on the very bottom. Hopefully you can see that there. And we'll do that last here. So this is just going to be the side of your box. You're going to put that on last as well once we get all the parts in place. And this is going to be the top of the record player. So the record player, this is where the actual record's going to sit onto at the end here. So we're going to start with this first. What we're going to do is we're going to grab this little tiny pin here. It just looks like a rectangle with an oval on the end, and that's where your record player is going to sit. So all you're going to do is take that square piece on the bottom and then pop that right into place. It can go in by hand, or you can hit it in with a hammer if it's too tight. But mine's just going in straight by hand. And then we're going to glue this whole unit to the top of the box in just a moment. But that's where that record player is going to rest on there, just like that, so it doesn't actually move off of there. So we got that done. You can move both of these out of the way here. Next up is going to be your main actual part that plays the record here. Obviously this is just made of wood and it's not going to actually play the record, but just giving you a heads up, these are the actual parts we're going to be working on next, and all of this actually goes to the same parts here. So as you can see, I've got little circles here with X's in them, the score lines with an X. These are the two pieces that are going to go underneath inside the box. So right here's the box. Those are going to go under here and lock that in, and that's what's going to allow it to not fall out on top here. And I'll show you what I mean in just a second. And you can actually add glue to these and then flip them over and put the two X's together. I'll show you what I mean here in just a second with that. We're going to do that last. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab your main little spindle here and these two larger circles and the circle with a score line around it. Hopefully you can see this on camera. I know they're really small parts. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit more so you can see what's going on here. So now that we have all these parts here, you're going to have one little stick here that's going to hold them all together. And like I said, you can glue all these. Right now I'm not going to glue them. So the first things that we're going to start with is going to be the actual circles with no lines on it here. What we're going to do is these larger circles with no lines, we're going to put those on first and then build off of those. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take this stick here and we're going to place it right in there just like that. And then we're going to go to the next one and we're going to work off of that. So if you can kind of push it through with your hand a little bit just to get it started, just like that, you can line up the next one and we're going to just build off of that. So you'll keep pushing that rod through there as much as you can. And hopefully you can see I'm just pushing that rod one by one through there. Now what we're going to do is you're going to actually have to flip this over if you're going to do it on top of the table or just do it right side up. You'll have a score line right here. I know my camera is horrible at, there we go. So you see the score line, this is going to be your top. So it's going to go like this, but you can flip it over and push down on the table if you need to. Doesn't look like we're going to need to do that in this situation. This is fitting pretty well. And you just keep pushing that down as much as you can to work it in there. And then the very last piece that you're going to want on top is this smaller circle with the score line on it. Hopefully you can see that now. That one's going to go on top, and this is going to be flush with that stick here. So we're going to just kind of give that a nice little tap here while it's upside down. And now it's flush with the actual stick, and we have a little bit left over outside here. This is going to be the part that actually goes into the box here. So this part right here is going to go into the box just like this. Hopefully you can see that. There we go. So it'll go into the box just like that, and that's what's going to allow it to spin back and forth. And then let me see if I can switch the box around so you can see better. As you can see, that spindles are sticking out, or that stick is sticking out right here. And let me grab the parts. Now we're going to go to the parts that have the X in it. So the X scored parts are the parts that you can glue if you want to. I'm not going to for this video. Seems like it's fitting pretty tightly anyways. You can flip the two X's on top of each other and glue them that way, but they're not going to be seen either way. So this is just to identify those are the parts that go in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reach in there with my hand and I'm going to tighten these both together. So you're going to just line that up, you're going to tighten it on that rod and push it through as much as you can there. There we go. And then I'm going to do the same thing here with the other one. Like I said, it doesn't matter which way you put it on. If you do them the opposite ways, they can potentially grab a little bit tighter for you. There we go. and it's going to stick out just a little bit more on the bottom, and that's okay. I just did a little bit extra just in case, depending on material thicknesses, because there's slight variations. But as long as the top right here is flush, that's what we want. So the top is flush, we got all of that inside, and as you can see, this thing can move back and forth without falling apart now. So the very last part is going to be your topper here. I wish my camera would be a little bit better at focusing, but this is the FSC logo that I printed. You can just ungroup the file, delete these letters, and add your own letters. And then we're going to just glue that at the very end on top, just to cover that little dot up, just like that. So that is the actual spindle on the record player, and I'm extremely zoomed in right now, so that's why it's kind of awkward for me trying to find out where to place this. But that's it for that. So the next thing we're going to be working on is this slider right here, this little part that's going to go in here. So what we're going to need is, let me go ahead and move all these parts over now. And like I said, these are extremely tiny parts. So hopefully you can see these on camera here. Let's see, there we go. So one part that I want to point out before we continue here is this little tiny part. It'll have like 4 little tiny circles on it. You may not be able to see it on camera, it's so small. That's actually going to be glued right here on top of the spindle. It's just for looks, that's all it's for. If you want to, you could just manually add circles to this if you don't ever want to even glue the 2 pieces together. But just a heads up, I'll be adding that at the end here, off camera, and I just want to point that out. So let's go ahead and move on to the next step here. So the next step is going to be the actual slider that's going to be sliding the volume up and down. You'll have the same thing as the other one, where you have 2 of these squares with X's on them. Hopefully you can see that on camera. There we go. But you'll have 2 of these squares with the X's on them. Let me see if I can actually zoom in even more. I know we're getting really zoomed in here. There we go. So as you can see, we have the X's on 2 of these. Those are going to be the bottom ones that go inside the box, just like I showed you a second ago. And then we have the actual stick that's going to be connecting these 2 on bottom, and then the top one on top here. So this time I'm going to do it opposite. I'm going to start from the bottom and then add the top one on last. So what we're going to do is just stick that stick through these. I'm actually going to do it this way. You want to make sure it is this way here. I'll show you in just a second once I get it connected. So you're going to make the stick opposite of the slider, because whenever it's in the actual unit, it's going to slide this way. So make sure the stick is opposite of what the actual sliding unit is going to be. So just a heads up on that. So what we're going to do is just push this through just like we did last time here. And then we're going to add that last piece on. And technically you shouldn't even need both of these, but I'm just doing it for extra security since it's going to be underneath. And just like that, we've got both of those on the bottom, and we're going to slide this last part inside the box, put this on top here, and then that piece right here is going to get glued on top of this, just like we did with that FSC logo. So let's go ahead and we'll grab the box here. I'm going to zoom back out. There we go, just a little bit. And the reason why I said make this part here opposite these parts here is it's going to go in sideways right through this little sliding unit here. So just like this, you can see it sticking right outside this little tab. You're going to do the same thing where you make this slider opposite, and you're going to clamp it down just like that. And now it'll be nice and flush, and you have a little slider here. As you can see, I can push it with my finger up and down here. And then you're going to glue the actual button on top if you want the button. Otherwise, it looks pretty cool just like that. But I'm going to go ahead and glue it on top just for the sake of what I did here. I know that makes it look kind of big. Personally, I almost like it without the button, but if you like the button here, you can just go ahead and glue it on just like that. So then you have your entire sliding unit. Once you have that glued on, like I said, I'm going to do that off camera. So I'm going to put all my glue pieces off to the side for now. And then we're almost done here. Lastly, you have these two actual volume knobs. These are going to be non-movable, as well as a recording button or play button, whatever kind of button you want to call this. Those are all going to be non-movable. These are all going to get glued on right in place here. And then that's pretty much it. Once you have all those in place and you move this spindle out of the way, you can then glue your entire part where the actual record's going to be sitting here. And that's it. That's the whole thing. And once you're done gluing everything, you'll put this side piece on. Technically, you can put the side piece on before gluing stuff. I may actually end up doing that. But that's all you got to do, is take your actual side piece, hammer that on right like that, and that's the entire unit there. So let me go ahead, get this together, get it glued together, and then I'll show you putting this whole unit into the bottom box and the acrylic on top, and then we'll go from there. Alright you guys, so as you can see, I've got all of the actual record player put together. I've got the FSC logo glued on, the actual switch glued on, and then the top spindle here glued on. So personally, if you don't want those on, you don't really need to. It looks awesome without those as well. I just try to make it as realistic looking as I could. And honestly, I kind of liked this thing off too, like I said earlier, just because it looked more flat. This button just looks raised now that I have two different things on there, but that's the only way that I can make the actual slider work. So let's go ahead and go over the actual parts itself. But as you can see, this slider will move up and down. I'm just being very careful because all the parts are fragile and all of this is still wet. I didn't give it time to really dry. I just wanted to show you guys what it looks like after it's all put together here. This spindle here is matching the top height of this unit. So if this is a little bit thicker, you may have to be careful and kind of push down here and slide this over at the same time. So as you can see, that slides over. And then if I move it back where I'm not holding it, it kind of catches right there like that. So you're going to have to slightly lift and then push down just a little bit like that. And then it'll go right on your record just like that. So that's pretty much it. To remove the record, you just remove the spindle and then this will pull up straight like that. And then you can just put your actual record back into place on the pin and then move that back up and on just like that. And you're good to go. So let's go ahead and put the actual box together here. As I said earlier, I'm going to zoom out just a little bit here so you can see everything that's going on. So we have the bottom box. This is going to fit super tight. I did it so hopefully we won't need any glue at all. There we go. And then if you need to add glue, you can, but like I said, that is nice and tight there. Fits right in there perfectly. Left a little tiny lip there just for the acrylic to catch. Now the acrylic window, like I said, I had masking tape on before, and the only reason why I put the masking tape on before was to prevent like dirt or fingerprints. Now I took the masking tape off, it's super clear. This is going to fit just as tight as that box, if not just a little bit tighter, so I can grasp that small section. And if it doesn't fit one way, you can flip it the other way. But like I said, this is going to be a nice tight fit for the first time you put it on, just like that. And that's it. You have your entire record player set perfectly. It looks awesome. This is super amazing. Like I said, I may end up making a bigger version of this as well. Right now, I'm pretty happy with this small version, so I may be sticking with the small version and making a larger record in the meantime. And then I may retract back to this for a larger version in the future because it'll take a lot of material for a larger version. And this only takes, basically, you could get away with one sheet of material if I didn't use a different color on the bottom for the wood, and then like a quarter sheet of acrylic. So this, you can actually get all of this wood on one sheet total if you use the same color. The only reason why I used a different color is I thought it would look neater, and it definitely does. And then just a quarter sheet of acrylic, and that's it. So a larger one's going to take a lot more, but I may do that in the future. But as of right now, I am super happy with how this turned out. And it's holding together pretty well for not using any glue at all, except for the top pieces that you have to glue on to cover some of the non-glued parts. And like I said before, you may want to glue those bottom components that are inside the box together, but don't glue it on top so it doesn't glue to the box, so it won't slide up and down or back and forth. So just a heads up, that's just to prevent it from falling off in the future if you actually plan on sliding that or moving it back and forth. But this is going to be mostly for a display piece here. Let me see if I can zoom in so you can see this better in detail. And as always, at the very end, I will try and get some photos so you can get a better view of this. But this thing is stunning. Looks amazing. I'm very happy with how this turned out. So I'll go ahead and get that close-up video or photos of this, and we'll catch you guys next time. And thank you again for supporting both my channel and my shop by purchasing this design. Thanks again, guys. We'll talk to you later.